been nice. I remember when I first filed to start the company, I got hit with like a, oh, this is real a moment. And um, so the motivation's been like so much more clear. Like I get up every day, I'm like, okay, I need to get something done related to this, you know? I think for me, the reason why I went the path of like starting my own thing was like the same reason why I like sports. Of like, I think there's something really fun and thrilling about like trying to make it on your own, where like the success and failure is like it's on you in a sense.
Yeah.
I think it's exciting. Definitely beats like just signing up with some random other company and like being reliant on them. Because I'm young, I'm relatively young, so now's the time for me to try things. So
Yeah. I mean, I like it. Like I've done both. I was a trainer for a company, and like on the positive, I learned a lot, got a ton of experience. But as you've probably heard from other like fitness people, physical therapists, stuff, it's like you kind of get run through the mill, and
yeah, you work within a system, and so not that I won't be working in one, but at least I get to set some of the terms.
for sure. And it really is different. Like now, I mean, I remember thinking like it was just such a grind and so easy to burn out. And it's like I work a lot now. I mean, I do some form of work every day, um, but it feels different because it's like
Hmm.
it's self, it's on me, and then you can take
Yeah.
full pride in the
Hmm.
progress you make and the difference you make in people's lives.
Yeah. I was reading today. There's a sports psychologist I follow who he works formerly has worked with like the Toronto Raptors, Kansas City Chiefs, um, like big time name, and like he was saying he was saying like success without value feels empty.
Yeah.
Like that's like such a big reason why like there's so many people who like they get to the top and then it's like okay, like what's next, or like that was it. And so I think like for me, I try and incorporate a ton of value-based decision making into, my own life and also like working with clients. Because like at the end of the day, if those are aligned, like there's just so many positive benefits like on and off the field. And like for me, it translates to the business too of like, like I really do try and inject my own values into it and it makes it like doesn't feel like it is a grind, but it doesn't feel like a soulless grind.
That's totally true. It's that's exactly right. It's a different kind of grind, and it is like, in some ways it's tough because like, um, I forget what I was gonna say. Oh, here he is. What's up, Alex?
What's up, gentlemen?
Hello. It's
How's it
been a
going?
little bit.
Yeah, what's up, Marshall? How are you doing? Has been a
Pretty
little
good.
bit.
I turned in my last final this morning at 8:30, so I'm like done with school for like 2 weeks.
Nice.
2 weeks. That's exciting. What
Awesome.
else has been going on? What other updates? Fill me in.
Um,
I
was
forget
talking about it with
exactly what's been
Brian.
happening
Yeah,
since the
I
pod.
was talking with Brian just before you got on, but I started my own company, so officially like doing mental performance stuff out in the open now.
Hi.
Because I wrapped up my all my training hours, all my coursework, so um, why not build something while I do like my clinical internship this next year?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, did that. Rebranded my Instagram, launched. I'm doing a series of free workshops, um, aiming towards bi-weekly, with like limited spots. And so I just like announced that today too. So a lot of stuff going on.
It's exciting. Real quick, last time we had an issue with the chat. There were like 10 people in there chatting,
Oh
and
yeah, dude. I want to see chat.
so
Where's chat?
if people are in here,
No, they're in here, dude. We need to figure it out. You know they're in here.
I just put a chat in so you guys hopefully could see that pop up. Because yeah, for some reason last time people were in there chatting and like we couldn't see it, and I don't know why. So I just wanted to
No, I think that's a good.
highlight that.
That's a good point, right? We should figure
I
that
might
out.
even go on school because I was on the school community. I got a couple
Jeez.
messages, and on Instagram, like Lynn, I think
Oh.
messaged me and was like, "Hey, we're in here," and I was like, "Oh crap." Um,
Could be a storage thing. It says like Riverside
oh really?
could have to. Could be. It says insufficient. That was the first thing. It's possible. So it relies on local recording for its high quality audio and video output. So your computer needs enough storage space to handle the files during the recording process. Maybe. I don't know though. But why did it? Well, that would actually make sense if it worked then at like the beginning stages and then not at the other
Yeah.
ones.
But it even says like right now it says on the live stream that on Riverside there's one person and on YouTube there's zero. And I kept checking last week and it kept saying zero on YouTube and there were like on the YouTube recording I went back and you can see the chat and I was like what is happening?
Yeah. I want to interact with chat.
I know that's
Chat is a
I'm like
living,
going on
breathing organism that I want involved.
I'm like trying to join. Let me see, is this I'm trying to like join the live thing now myself? View live control room. Oh. Oh, they're here. What is going on? I see it.
You see it? I
Hi,
want to see
Lynn.
it.
I see
How do
it
you
on
see? How'd you?
YouTube.
How? Oh, on YouTube.
I'm in Lynn EMF. We see you.
Oh,
Uh,
you just went on YouTube.
yeah. So can you guys see me? Because I'm just on my YouTube. I can like see. I have you like picture in picture.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. I'll just.
No, it's weird because the chat settings have definitely changed. Like, it's because when you sent the chat. Hang on, can you see?
Yeah. Did they not get? Yeah. It's all
Normally,
supposed to.
there's options for the chat too. Like normally, it could just
Yeah.
be like setting. I mean, you might just have to fuck around with. I don't know.
Live stream chat, studio chat. There's like studio chat. Yeah, I'm not sure what is going on with it, but what I can do for now is I'll just I'll have the YouTube thing up. I
Yeah,
can
I'm
see
pulling
you
up the
guys too.
YouTube too. Yeah, it pops up with a little bit on the side anyway.
But anyhow, super exciting, Marshall. Like one thing I will say real quick, some unsolicited advice with workshops and stuff. Talk about it like several times a week because like I used to like I would post and be like, all right, people are gonna show up, and like people just don't act on it. So like the week of, post about it, then put it in your story, and then post about it again because like we see everything we post, so in our mind we're like, I
It's always there.
exactly, but for
Hmm.
other people it's like I remember the first free workshop I did in person and no one showed up at all, and I just gave a PowerPoint to no one just because I was like, oh, I'll get the practice. So um, that's always helpful. Like social media is weird, and you just have to like repeat yourself a lot. I even like with my memberships online, like I used to just not get much traction until I started repeating things over and over. So helpful.
Yeah, no, that's been the plan. So with like taking my social media game kind of seriously. So um yeah, I was gonna like do work on that with like creating a structure on that. So later today.
So
Awesome.
what kind of stuff are you gonna be doing, Marshall? You're gonna like trying to like get clients or what?
Yeah, so it's basically split into two kinds of services. One is individual mental performance coaching. So it's a lot of what I've been doing already in my previous internship roles where like, someone comes in, they fill out the intake form. I either see them for an hour on Zoom or in our office. In this case, it'll be over Zoom. Um, and then we take a pretty, it's not like a it's definitely not like you come in and I tell you to do these things approach. It's definitely much more like person centered, led from behind because the idea is I come in and I have a bunch of knowledge on like psychological principles and performance techniques, and like I'm the one who has like done the research and taken the classes. But at the end of the day, like you are the one who lives the experience. You are the one like I'm not living in your brain. I don't know what it's like. You are the expert on your own mind. I'm just there to like guide you in a sense and to give you an extra perspective. It's like similar to having a coach on the field, but with, just like how your brain works and your cognition and your thoughts and feelings and behaviors. And for in that category, a lot of people struggle with like gaining that self-awareness initially. So a lot of times what we do is we will like subtly work on people's mindsets over the long term, especially things regarding like stress, failure, adversity, growth versus fixed mindset, like changing your trajectory to have a healthier approach that allows for more sustainable success. And then on the other hand, working on like actual more tangible mental skills sorts of things. So that could be helping someone like nail down their pre-game routine or their pre-practice routine, or helping people with like being more mindful to help them improve in their training or their practice, or even just like helping people focus more consistently and get into like a peak performance psychological state, whether that's flow state or clutch state or whatever. So it's pretty it's pretty broad. So we tend to just start with like, what are you struggling with right now? And then we
Mm,
address that, and then we kind of build off that, of like, okay, like what are your more end game goals? And then we also do workshops. So I've done it with a lot of teams before. So sometimes it'll be like with a whole team. Sometimes it will just be like with a leadership group, um, or like a staff of people. So on that end, definitely it's a mix of like psychoeducational stuff of me, like, giving them information, they get to use it, apply it, and also like doing activities or things that like help them see the point, like
mm,
why it's important. So
hmm. And
yeah,
how
so those
often
are the
like
things
do
that we
people
do.
come to work with you? Like, is it like something someone would do every week? Like, how frequently would you meet with
Yeah,
someone?
it honestly depends.
Hmm.
For example, like I just finished the season with a baseball team, and one of the clients I saw on the team, like we met every week for 8 months. And this was someone who like definitely needed a bit more support in the beginning. Like they had transferred from another school. They had like major surgery for like a nerve injury. So like they honestly came in, and like when I was talking to them in the intake, they were like, I don't know if I can make this team. Like if I'm done, like that's it for my career. So it was a lot of like, okay, like like let's help your mindset in terms of like how you show up to the field, so you're not like racked with the anxiety of like making a team.
Mm,
um and then it's like, okay, like once you got that, it's like, okay, you made the team, cool, like what's the next step for you? And so for him it was like, okay, I want to make the travel roster for this team on their spring break tournament in Florida. And then he did that, and then it was like, okay, I want to be ready for an opportunity when I get put in the game. And then we did that. And then it was like, okay, I'm getting opportunities. I got it now. Like now that I have a source of consistent play, like I need to adapt to this role psychologically. So that was something that like, we did a lot of intensive work on that. Um, Sometimes other people come in for a lot more simple reasons. I had a wrestler come in September, and I was like, okay, like what brings you here? And he was like, yeah, I was just hesitating on this one move at practice. And like my friend told me I should see you. I was like, "Oh, okay, like that was a really simple one." So we just did some focus cueing. And like he said that helped. And then, we had a couple more sessions like bi-weekly to help him prep for the season. And then once the season started, like he felt like he was in a good spot. So we stopped. Um, I had another client come in where they were just like really struggling in the preseason. They played volleyball. They were one of the servers, so like they were struggling a ton with their consistency on that end. So I remember we did that one session. Um, like one of the questions I asked was like, "Do you have a pre-serve routine?" And she was like, "No." So we're like, "Okay, like let's make one. Let's see how it goes. Like what's worked for you." And so we spent probably 45 minutes just like building her routine for that. And then she came in next week. She was like, "That was fantastic." And then we met on and off probably throughout the season, but that was like her main issue. And then after
Mm.
that, it was more so just like, navigating things as they popped up. So it's really dependent on like where you are and like at what point of the season you're in. So that's also what I like about it too. Is like every person that comes in, it's like it's never the same situation. It's always like unique in some way.
What do you think it is about a pre anything routine that helps so much?
It just builds consistency. And consistency is a source of confidence, as well as the fact that doing it is going to help you. It's gonna it's gonna prime you towards all the things that you need to be doing versus all the things that you shouldn't. So if because I assume you probably pull for Summit or
I think about it
Bravo at
for my
times.
disc golf putt. Really, I'm thinking
Okay,
about
all
it for
right.
Oh,
So
my
disc
I
golf.
for my
So
putt. I gotta get a
yeah,
little
so
routine for it.
so disc golf. Let's say you're about to putt. Um, right? So there's probably a handful of cues that go into a successful putt. I've never done it
Yes,
before, but there's
got
probably
it.
a
Got it. I
handful.
gotta spin it a little
So
bit. Got to get that nose
yeah,
angle right.
yeah. So there's like those, let's say like there's like those two cues.
Hmm.
And then like all of a sudden, like put yourself in your environment. You're in some place, it's maybe a bit cold, it's maybe a bit windy. If you're a competitive disc golfer, there's gonna be like at a tournament, maybe it's being streamed, maybe there's like a couple, like 100 people watching you. All of a sudden all of a sudden focusing on those two things becomes a much more difficult thing to do if you've never practiced that
Uh
before
huh. Uh huh.
consistently,
Uh huh. Uh
right?
huh.
If you just show up and like you kind of just putt casually, no thought into it. You're kind of just flowing where your mind's taking you. Like you're not really preparing yourself for success when the stakes are really high and there's a ton of eyeballs on
Mhm.
you, and the
Mhm.
competitive scenario is really different. So the routines is basically designed to help you like tune out the noise and to tune in like on what you need to be doing.
Mm.
Um, a pretty common saying I give to teams is like, don't think like if I tell you to not think of a polar bear, that's going to be the first thing you think of. So like when people say, like, oh, like I just have to stop overthinking or like I need to not do this, they're setting themselves up for failure because they've already put it in their mind. So the routine's meant to be like this structure that's like, okay, like I just need to think about this to do this, and then everything else kind of becomes irrelevant.
Mm. What is You talked about focus cueing. You said
Yeah.
was that the term?
Hmm. Yeah.
What?
It's Brit. I think. Sorry to cut you off.
No, yeah,
Brian's
you're right.
probably.
You get the gist of the
Yeah.
question. What is
Yeah. Yeah.
it?
Brian's probably familiar with this in some sense, right? When he gives a cue for an exercise, that is a focus cue. It's basically just directing your attention on what you need to be doing. Um, so on the psychology side, we can help give people cues and like help people come up with cues that resonate with them because there's a lot of overlap with focus cueing and visualization and self-talk. And what we know from those things is that, especially in the self-talk end, is if it doesn't resonate with you, if you don't really believe it, or like you have trouble really like seeing it, saying it, it's not really going to be super effective. So there's always work you can do on finding cues that like motivate you or set you in the right direction. And then there's also some science about, like for example, people talk about how external focus cues are really helpful, especially for people who are learning. So, like, right, like if I go up to a beginner and I say, like, all right, like on your putt, you need to adjust your angle. Like you need to lower your angle by 10 degrees. You need to
Mm-hmm.
like tune in your core. You need to squeeze your core a bit more, and like,
Yeah.
that's not really gonna work for someone. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
finding external analogies can be like really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
so there's some science between, do you use internal or external cues for learning versus performance, all that sort of stuff.
that's a big one I use and think about a lot because like with mobility stuff, it's a combination of the two, but you generally want to start off with external. Like if I'm teaching someone a hip car, I'm not going to be like, "Hey, I want you to like squeeze your hip flexor and then feel your glute and then like turn your pelvis to like someone who's never done it before." It's like I want you to move your leg in a big circle. It's like, "Oh, cool. Now I want you to stay tall. Move your leg in a big circle." It's like then like when people are more advanced and they have more internal awareness, you can
Right.
change cues. But like what you'll see in people who are um, maybe not as expert trainers, or they're really fired up, they'll throw a lot of different cues at once, so that it doesn't
Yeah.
allow the person to focus and get the benefit of any one of the cues. um, so that's just something that that I think about a lot on a regular basis, where like I've seen trainers be like, pull your knee up, do this, take a breath, head up. Like it's like, okay, that's
Yeah, they're just excited. Yeah.
yeah, right, exactly. Or like I've seen a lot from like new trainers and people who are just, but like Marshall mentioned too, with cues of any kind, you want to see what resonates with the person. And with training, it's a little different, where it's not necessarily a belief thing, but more of just like what mentally, like what makes the most sense. Um, so just a cool little parallel there.
Do you think it's like Marshall? Do you think it's good to have um like one cue for an athlete when they're trying to learn something new? Like always? Do you think they should
Um,
always be like
I
something that
mean,
they're
you
the
are,
focus?
yeah, I would say so. Because if it's like you're using cues, you either are using cues, but it's not focused and it's like it's not optimal, or you're just distracted and you're not learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, um, I found myself on the other end of this, working in sports outside of Ultimate a lot, where like I'm at a practice and like they're explaining like all this strategy stuff, and like for me it's like I have no idea what's going on. And like if I'm trying to learn, like what would help is if I just like, okay, I'm gonna focus on like just following this one thing. So if it's a
Mm-hmm.
basketball play and I'm at practice, it's like, okay, like I need to just like follow, I just need to like see like where the screens are being set and when and like what types, versus like trying to think of all the movement and the passes, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, versus if I'm just kind of watching it with no kind of with with no point of attention, then it's just going one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
And you see it a lot where like, especially if you coach at a lower level, where like you'll be in the huddle explaining a concept, and then like there's always just like a couple of people where like they're just in a different world, and part of it is because again their focus isn't grounded on the whiteboard or on like what you're teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So, you think of like, oh, is a focus cue necessary? And it's like yes and no, partially because like your focus is always somewhere. So you should be trying to direct it in places.
Quick, so I love that. I think that's like the focus is huge, and it's such an undervalued skill, that also gets eroded by like current, technology and apps and phones and all that. But real quick, so Lynn is in the chat and said, the mindset is one thing I struggle on. I think I'm at the plateau stage of my skills, and it's pretty tough for me at the moment since my skills in Ultimate are not progressing that much. Um, so Marshall, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, or thoughts of how to how to approach feeling like you're at a plateau stage and just not progressing, related to, I guess, like the energy you're putting in.
Yeah. I think the first thing would like, if someone came in to me to say it, like the first thing I would ask is like, what are you comparing like your skills to? Like, are you comparing it like to where you were a year ago or 5 years ago? I think like getting perspective on that is really helpful. Um, I've dealt with a lot of injuries, and like, sometimes you get stuck, and like I remember I like a couple years ago I was dealing with this lower back injury, and like it felt like for a month it was like, like this is not going anywhere. And then like I can go on my phone, I can scroll back to like like a video from like 6 months before, where like I like just relearned the ability to like deadlift like just the barbell. It was like, oh, that's great. Like the reframe or the like gaining perspective can help on that. But then the second part is more on like the mindset part. I think the way I would define mindset is like your set of beliefs and attitudes about yourself and the world. So you can have an overall mindset. I like to think of mindsets like around specific topics like stress, failure, growth. Those three are really important. Um, and I think like when you say you're at a plateau stage, I think that definitely implies a certain mindset about your skill level and what you think is possible for yourself. I remember I did this workshop with this baseball team I used to work with. We did like a mental performance profile. So like it was a circle. and like a bunch of different categories of like mental skills and qualities about themselves, like confidence, motivation, discipline, um, and they would rate themselves on 1 to 10 throughout, for each one. And like while we were close to the end, like someone brought up, oh, like is a 10 actually possible? And then it devolved into this whole discussion of like, what do we define as a 10? Like, is a 10 like, like is a 10 on competitiveness just like, do I just put Michael Jordan at a 10 and like call it a day and like if I get close to that, cool? Or is it something of like, oh, it's not never actually possible, you're just getting close to that. And I think like really looking at it from that end can encourage a lot of like deep reflection in terms of, what am I comparing myself to? What I think is actually like possible on like the human spectrum, and then where do I land on that? I think those are like I think those are really important things to consider with like, um, and I've been thinking about this a lot, coaching Boston Slow this year and like running tryouts, and like the thing that kind of always comes up is like, what's your superpower? Like, what are you gonna do to earn a spot here where we can trust to put you on the line at nationals, and like know that there's some like really important strength you bring. And I think it's really important. Like the thing I've been thinking about is like, not just what strength do I bring, but like what is possible for me. And I think like once you start thinking about that, if you start if you start believing you're capable of more, that belief is going to precede the work you do to put that in. Like, the belief precedes the work
Mm-hmm.
in
Absolutely.
most cases, not always, but
I
Nah, I
that
get
is
feeling it does. Yeah.
that's a huge point. I mean, you have to have some belief, or like I talk about this with hope or optimism too. It's like there has to be something driving you to do the stuff. Because yeah, if you're like, I'm never going to get here, or I can't make any more progress, then what's the point of putting in the effort? But I like the superpower because like that can also be, you can look in different perspectives. Maybe someone isn't the most athletic and they don't see themselves being, but it's like I always make the right decision, or I change direction exceptionally well. I don't give my offensive player space. Like whatever it is, I think that leaves so much room for people to find like what they do well, reinforce it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. One of the biggest things I took away from when we had our pod, Marshall, was just like, I mean, like the whole idea of like reframing things, because I feel like a lot of times you just get stuck, or people, or myself, I'll even just talk about myself, just getting stuck on a certain mindset that's not helping you in what you
mhm,
want to accomplish. And then it can be so hard to break it down. But sometimes, like, if you talk to someone like you, or just really anyone else, if you express it, you get to the point where you realize, like, there's no need to limit. Like, we'll get so stuck on like a certain concept or idea, and when you start to break it down, that there's so many different ways that you could look at a given situation or just life in
mhm,
general, that being so stuck on any certain idea, concept, or like constraint that you're giving yourself is
yeah,
not worth it at all. And it's really helpful to just, if you can identify those things that are blocking you, and like take a step back and just be like, oh, let me try to like just completely rethink how I'm approaching this situation.
yeah.
It can be just so beneficial.
For me, one thing that really like turned around my mindset, uh, with like being in hard situations, especially on the field, was like being a photographer. And like, I remember I was shooting at Club Nationals last year, like in the semis and the finals, and like it was always like I always was wanting the other team to come back, or like I was always wanting there to be a block or for something to go wrong. And it's that fan
Yeah.
perspective of like things are the most intense and the most fun when they're close, when there's adversity.
Mhm.
Uh, and like I ran towards those moments, but like when we're players, like we run away from that moment. And like, fair enough, you want to win. Like not gonna deny that. But like again, I was telling Brian about this earlier with like success is pretty empty without meaning. And I think adversity can add meaning to that. So like remember
Definitely.
I've said to teams I've coached before, of like when we had a lead and the team goes on runs, like, okay, like, yeah, we didn't want that to happen, but now this like now it's an interesting game, you know? Like, would you rather
Totally.
like, like if you think of a game you remember, are you gonna remember a game where you won by like five and it was never close and like you stiff arm them the whole way and like, oh, cool, whatever? Or like, would you remember a game where like it was super intense and like you won on Universe in a really hard fought game? Like, you're gonna remember that. It's gonna mean way more in your mind. Like, those are the kinds of games like you talk about with your teammates like a year or two or like when the season's over, like, man, like, do you remember that? That was awesome.
And
Hmm.
the reframe, the other thing there is like you may not initially enjoy that, but like something I do, and initially it was like I'm just a weirdo and I like to just be, that strange person. So like, we'd be playing and we'd have a turn on offense. And I'd be like, we get to play D. Like, we get to play D. Are you serious? Like, and people would look at me like, what are you like? What is wrong with you?
I used to say that at college
But
practices.
yeah, we get, and then like, but it became this thing where like
I'm
I
not like that.
genuinely
I'm
got
like, what the
excited.
fuck, bro? Why the fuck
I
did we
Alex would
turn
look
to
at me and
this?
be like,
I played
walk away.
I would be
offense.
like so fucking pissed if someone was.
Dude.
I was like the 10th turnover the
Yeah.
point. We got
Oh,
I
like,
well,
played
I'm
no,
not gonna
I'm
do it on
joking.
the,
I'm joking.
yeah.
I'm joking.
but,
I used to play
yeah.
I like played offense my entire high school career. I was just like a reset handler, and then I went to college and like I was not a center handler, but I knew that if I wanted to make competitive club teams, like my defense needed to be like world class. And so like that was like part of me like just like embracing that of like, okay,
Hmm.
like we turned it over, like cool, I had to practice more. Like it's gonna help me
Hmm.
long term. And that was like my mental approach to that. And now
Hmm.
I really now like defense is probably my strength compared to my offense right now. So
Dude, it's great stuff. I real quick, or Alex, did you have something more to say about that?
Well, I was just gonna say, even thinking about the mindsets and being malleable. Like, I think if you are in a close game, then you're like, yeah, okay, now it's interesting. Like, this will be something we remember. But also, if you're up by 5, you're like, the goal is like, let's try to like, I think that's kind of the whole point. Is what we were talking about. Is you can adapt a mindset to any situation and put
yeah,
a compelling twist on it and make it motivating to do something, because me, like,
yeah,
I would like a close game. I'd also like to just smack someone up, you know what I mean, and totally destroy them and play like really well, because I'd remember that too. Like, if we played like, to the like best of our abilities and you totally smoked them and it wasn't close at all, like, you can go both ways.
yeah. That what you refer to like adapting the mindset, it's something we call the healthy delusion. For an
Yeah, I think I
example,
had
like
that.
for example, when Steph Curry misses a shot, like in his head, he's going, that makes the next one more likely to go in mathematically because I missed. But when
Right.
Hmm.
he's on a hot streak, he's not saying like when he makes a shot, he's not like, oh, that means the next one's like probably not gonna go in. He's like, no,
Right.
that means everyone I'm shooting tonight is going in, right? It
Because I'm
makes no
hot.
logical sense, but it works for his brain. It's right. It only needs to make sense in your mind. It does not need to make sense for like anyone else, which is like the really cool part about
Hmm.
your mindset.
There's something like you cannot deny there is something magical about our minds. Like I can remember playing shooting hoops on a regular net, and like I'm not a great basketball player. Like if I shoot regularly, I have a decent shot, but like my athleticism's it's always going to be the biggest part. But I'm shooting, and there's times I could miss five threes in a row or whatever, but like I remember I literally could not miss like 30 plus shots in a
It's
row.
just so fun though when that
And
happens.
like for people who regularly shoot, you have to have some baseline ability for that to happen. But I know a lot of people who are not excellent basketball players, and this just happens to where like you just get on this tear and you can't miss. And there's something that happens, whether it's a relaxation or what, where you're like, or you just see it's visually like three or four go in, and you just keep seeing it going in, and then it just keeps happening, and it defies explanation, at least for me.
It's against the odds
But it's a
for
mental,
sure.
I mean, maybe Marshall has an explanation, but it's an amazing thing where it's like the
Yeah.
odds of me, a non-basketball player,
Right,
making
like if you
30
went and
shots in a
shot
row.
threes, if you went and shot 33s, you'd make like fit, like, I don't know, but
Right. If I shot
not,
33s in perfect conditions, fully warmed up, I'd probably make like nine. Um,
I
and
probably
like,
make zero.
you know, but like, where it's like, man, I can't, like, I remember like, and I'm just like, then I'm 30 feet away from the basket, just
Yeah,
like eating
you
them
just
up.
start
They're going
feeling
in.
yourself. That's like the best thing ever. I just
Um, it's a fun thing, but again, it's like there's something there, and there's a mental component um, that is pretty
definitely.
incredible.
Yeah. No, it sound everything you're describing sounds like the description of flow state you see in the research. And like another thing which I really like about I've been I've been focusing a lot of my like reading and like just like attention on flow state and clutch state related research because I think it's so interesting of like it's a state that anyone can get into, but being able to get into a flow state, into a clutch, I'll explain what a clutch state is in a second, but getting into a state of peak performance is a skill in itself. And people who are more easily able to get into that state just are better athletes. You can find some really interesting testimonials about it from Steph Curry. He talks about his ability to get into a flow state. But there's a bunch of research that shows like there are, definable steps and things you can do to like get into that state more often. Um, One of them naturally is going to be preparation. If you shoot more threes, you are more likely to get into a flow state when you're shooting threes, simply because it is easier for your mind and body to get into this automatic state, if you're just better at it, like anyone can do it, if I shoot a three, and I hit it, my body like knows what that's like. It's just that the chance of me getting into that state is like a lot lower because I am less easily able to replicate that or to get into a state where that's automatic.
Hmm.
But I like I like what you described there because that's something I've been thinking a lot about recently.
That's big, and I think like the distinction between it's like we can get there, but like the more practice and prep you put in, the more likely you
Hmm.
are to be there. Because like
Yeah.
the more it's like your mind knows what to do and it knows what a successful rep feels like, but it's like can you access that more readily? And like the better you are at it to begin with, my guess would be the easier it is to slip into that and just like not think and
Yeah,
it just
for
happens.
sure. Yeah, and like it takes a lot of work to get there. Like there are steps outside of just practice too, like the type of goals you set, your ability to reframe or like appraise a situation is also really important. Um, like your mindset going into that. Like there's a couple clear steps that like help you get into that. And then same with a clutch state. So a clutch state's pretty much like it's not the opposite of a flow state, but it's like pretty different. So flow states are generally um, it's like very loose, relaxed. There's generally this idea that like everything feels automatic, like your brain kind of shuts off entirely. Um, and it's also like very rewarding. Like people often like get out of a flow state and they're like, wow, like that was awesome. I could go another round. It typically happens in situations that are pretty open-ended or there's some room for creativity or experimentation. Like you kind of see it in a heat check with a basketball player. It's like, okay, I just made this like catch and shoot three. All right, next one, like we're gonna run a play for you. It's like, all right, like I made that one. Next one, like I'm just dribbling it up half court and I'm like shooting it at the first sliver of daylight. Like, let's see what happens, right? And then it's kind of like avalanches from there. But a clutch state happens in really intense moments. So like if you've ever played on a point, if you ever played defense on game point or universe point, you know what it feels like. It's this feeling of complete focus and intensity. It's typically like you're not in a fully automatic state, but like certain skills are automatic. So like probably your defense, like your awareness, like those kind of up another notch. Um, and then at the end, right, it's not this like super rewarding feeling. It's incredibly taxing. But like being able to get into both of those states are like super valuable on both ends of performance because you can't be in a clutch state the entire tournament. Like you're just gonna be fried mentally, like
Mm,
by the end
right.
of the first game. But like, if you know how to access it, like when a team is going on a run, right? Knowing how to get into that. So you're more likely to like get a hold or to
Hmm.
get a block.
Hmm.
Or, like if you're playing against a worse team or like you're up, it's like, okay, like can I get into this state where everything's clicking and then like we can like just shut this team out for the rest of the game. Like those are really important skills to have.
Yeah, I I have a fun story about that, and not to toot my own horn too much, but this was like I can't say like this happens all the time, definitely not. But we were at Masters Nationals in 2021, and I'm on the D line. We're at Universe Point, and we're in Colorado. You know, it's beautiful fields. I'm sitting there. Normally, I'm getting like super amped up, like D line Universe. I'm going just like crazy. And I just sat there and I closed my eyes and I took like 3 or 4 deep breaths and I visualized a layout D. Now I visualized it on the first throw, um, but I came down and I was on the their primary cutter for the entire game, and shut down his first like 3 cuts, and eventually no one else was there. They had to throw, and I got a layout D, and we ended up winning the game. And like I can't say I expected that to happen, but it also wasn't shocking. Um, and so I've been in a number of moments like that where like something in the moment told me like you just need to like slow down, focus, and see it happening. Um, and then sometimes it does. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Marshall, you got me hyped up, dude. Made me. I was getting chills. I wanted to go play, do something.
Dude,
I wanted to enter a state like that because it is just. So I feel like it's what I live for. To be honest, like I just love playing games, and I feel like a lot of it is because like when I'm in a game, what no matter what it is, the amount of like focus it um, draws from me is so much that like nothing else, I just get lost in like whatever I'm doing, and I just love that feeling. And I feel like to an extent, it's a lot of the like those phases or whatever those mindsets that you're describing because it's just like when you get into that mindset, like everything just seems so much more simple because it's all right in front of you. You're just focused on like whatever little if we're playing fucking hacky sack or anything, you know what I mean? Like just something to focus on. I love that kind of.
It's, fall, I worked at this
oh,
Marshall, we can't hear you.
yeah, your audio's something's up with it.
Let me check my audio.
I think I can hear it. It feels a little bit like distorted. Uh,
Wait, talk again.
Hello?
There we go.
All
yeah.
right, cool. So I used to work with this football player in the fall. Was like he was like the captain of his position. Believe he was a tight end or defensive lineman. I can't remember. But we met for the first couple weeks of the season, and what we would do is we would meet before like the day before game day, and like he would come in, be super nervous, just like rant about everything that's going on, and like all the negative stuff about the team, and like being worried about the win. And then like the last 15 minutes we'd be like, okay, like what do you need from me to be like feel prepared for tomorrow? And then we talk in a little bit, and then I give him like this summary or like this script at the end where it was like, okay, like this is what you got to focus on, like on the self-talk end, and then I would like add like some imagery element to it, like add details, make it descriptive, and like by the end he was like, oh wow, like I'm really hyped, like I just want to go play it right now. And then he's like, I feel great, and then he'd walk out, and then the next day he'd like do it. And so I think it's always cool when like you can like what I really love about the visualization skill is like if you get good at it, you can get to this point where like it becomes so much easier to like be ready for for the moment in general.
Yeah. That's you can feel the so like one thing that I've noticed that I've tried to like get other people to do as well is like if you're doing skills and like Kins, I'm sure you can relate to this too, whether it's throwing, laying out, whatever. And if you get really good at imagery, like you can feel the nerves firing. Like you can feel what it's like to jump. Like not necessarily in your muscles, but I get like this like flow running through my body, actually feeling like the impulse to jump. And that's really cool because then you can get like some part of neurological practice from imagery, which I know like the more um, detailed and specific it is, typically the more effective, right?
Detail and control.
Detail and control, yeah.
Um, Marshall, do you think that self-talk, good self-talk, is a symptom of other things, or is it also something that needs work in its own self?
It's both. Um, some of the research I've been reading recently, like talks about, and like in the intro definitions of self-talk, is that a lot of people suspect that there's two types of self-talk. One is like reactionary, one's anticipation. So like if I throw a turnover, reaction self-talk is me being like, damn it, like I suck at this or whatever.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. More
And the
like
other type is like it might be like me being on the line. It's be like, all right, like gotta be aggressive. Like I'm gonna take away this guy's cut. Like I'm gonna shut him down. Right. Like that's me kind of preparing myself for the moment. There's a lot of people who believe that the reactionary self-talk is generally pretty indicative of other core beliefs that or mindsets that you hold about yourself. Like if you like mess up a throw and you're just like, I suck. Oh my God. It's like, okay, we probably need to like talk about this a little more, right? Like I can't just tell you to be like, okay, just like be positive with your self-talk next time, right? Because they're not gonna believe that probably. So a lot of the self-talk work is like, right, it's not just finding something that clicks with you, it's finding something that like um it's navigating those internal beliefs you have about yourself in a lot of cases, right? And then it's like finding ways to integrate self-talk that like your current self that resonates with your current self while also like guiding yourself towards being someone with a more like healthier and sustainable mindset about things.
I like that. It's a
Yeah,
great point.
I did this one workshop with self-talk with a track and field team, and like they generally all loved it. And there's this one guy who he also loved the workshop, but he was very different than the others. He came in and like we started talking about positive self-talk, and he's like, nah, that doesn't work for me. Like, I gotta come in and like I gotta tell myself that like I'm a bitch and like, everyone hates me. It's like that's what I need. Like it gets me motivated to like get revenge on them. I'm like, okay, like we like this cannot be addressed in like a workshop. Like we would need to talk about this more, but like good for you. um like that's something that's like okay, like clearly you would need a lot of nuanced work to work with your self-talk because there's a lot of underlying beliefs and you need to create something that still resonates with those beliefs while also working towards changing your own self-perception. It's probably one of the biggest skills in terms of working on your mindset outside of like self-awareness is the ability to like accept two things that like are contradictory, like being able to be comfortable in paradox because
Yeah,
you need to be able to have self-compassion and to accept yourself for who you are while also, right, if you want to be a performer, you also want to be aiming towards something higher and recognizing
yeah,
that you aren't where you want to be in some sense. Like those two things have to be true at the same time.
totally. Yeah, you kind of went down the same train of thought that I did because when you were talking, I was like, sometimes when I throw a turnover, I'll be like, you fucking are so bad, like you piece of shit, like what, like just like because I expected to not, I expected to complete the pass, and so when I don't, it's like whatever. And then what you said about like existing in the paradox, I think is really healthy because it's like, on the one hand, you're saying it in a really harsh way, but it's like, okay, I didn't got like, why the heck didn't I, execute on this, and like I'm not doing it. And on the other hand, you have that belief in yourself to like go do it the next time, and you believe that you can do all these things while also believing you have like many things to work on and
Yeah.
improve at and
Yeah.
all that
And that's
stuff.
the tough part. Because athletics is like there's a lot of toxic masculinity in athletics. There's a lot of like this idea of like people are starting to get more open about it, but on the other hand, like there's still a bad rap in a lot of environments about like self-compassion, because it's like, oh, but don't you want to like get better? It's like,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
but like
yeah.
you gotta be nice to yourself.
Right. And it can like rub
Yeah.
people the wrong way if you're like, you know what I liked is like there was that clip of Chalamet at one of the like awards
Yes,
show.
I
You
have that
saw
clip
that?
saved on my phone.
Yeah, I did. I kind of knew you would because then I fucked with it
Yeah.
a lot. I really liked it because he was just like, people don't really say this all the time, but like I really want to be like one of the best like ever to do this, and like that's what I'm. And I was like, I fucking love that, dude. Like I really, really, really like that. And it honestly, most of the time, like shit you're seeing on those apps isn't resonating with you, but that
Hmm.
one did stick with me, and I was just like, I wanna say to myself and out loud more that like I want to be great at this and what I'm doing. And it is a weird thing where like when people can say that around you, it's like a little weird, like what's up with this guy, like why is he saying that shit, like chill out, bro, like we're all just, but I think it's really really important and really healthy.
I one thing I think about a lot is like what you're saying and expecting versus what you're doing. Like, if people can go around and like say these big goals or what they want, and if they're not doing things proactively to work towards it, it doesn't hold a lot of weight. And you can kind of get a sense of those people. Like we all know those people who like it's like, okay, well, you're not like, what are you actually doing? Are you just
The
stating a goal?
unhealthy
And we've
delusion.
talked, Marshall and I have talked about this too, about like, just stating goals itself is not necessarily helpful.
True.
But another thing is like, even with self-talk, like if you are in the background going through your process, you're working on your skills, you believe and know that you can improve. When you make a mistake, compared to someone who's not doing that, I feel like it's a little easier to swallow because it's like, I know how to improve. I'm actively working on it. And this single outcome is not indicative of me as a player or a person or of this skill. This is
Right.
maybe an outlier.
Yeah. The one of the biggest parts of growth mindset is recognizing um, that your ability can change with effort. It's like having a high expectancy, right? If you know
Yeah.
that if you put in work with
Yeah. Yeah.
intentionality, you can improve, right? That's the first step to growing, is that knowing that growth is possible for
Mm,
you. So like part of the right, like if you're being like, okay, like my skill is plateauing, like there's a ton of things to address with that of like, what do you think is possible with your skill set?
mm,
Do you think it's actually possible for you to get there? And then, you know, if you put in effort, can you get there? Those are like
mm.
three things that like need answering before you can actually like move forward on that end.
I love that. One thing I notice is that I think generally with if you're looking at like two different players, one of them is like a more high performing player than the other. Generally, the like more high performing player after they make a mistake, like they just keep attacking. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Whereas like, and their mindset allows them to like, if they make a mistake, they keep attacking. And I'll notice it about even myself in like different, I'll go to play basketball, and if I miss a shot, I'm fucked. I'm done. I'm not shooting anymore. Like I airballed that shit. I'm done. If I fuck up a huck really, really bad in ultimate, I'm yoinking that shit next point. It does not matter because I know that I'm just gonna hit the next one. And
You
obviously,
just
like
gotta
some of
shoot.
this is skill related, but I do notice that like there are certain people that can go and play basketball even if they haven't practiced a bunch and still have that mindset of like, oh, I missed a shot, fuck it, I'm a ball out anyway, and like they keep going. You know what I mean? And I think that is just a huge factor in people that are going to be successful is shaking off those mistakes because like you just see some people it rattles them once they make a mistake and
Yeah.
they stop.
Yeah, and this is why so much of the work I do is like it's like open-ended at the start because you talk about like being able to reset off mistakes and like that is a confidence piece, right? Of like, do you trust yourself to make the next one? Or like to execute this skill.
Yeah.
It's also like a stress appraisal and a mindset thing of like, okay, how are you
Mm.
interpreting this mistake too? Because you might be able to interpret this mistake but still have in an unhealthy way, but maybe you're still really there's so many ways you can go
Yeah.
with it, which is like so
Yeah.
interesting to me.
What used to always help me too was like it would always be when I played against players that were really good and you see people mess up and you're like, oh, okay. Like we're all the same. Like you are not this like magical entity that I've made you out to be in my head. Like you are also a person and you're really not that good. And I've seen a lot of your highlights and I've seen a lot of you in successful moments, but you're not that good, like relative to like just a normal human or what I want to
Hmm.
be, I guess. So like whenever I would go up to a level like college or I just feel like I would always get to another level. Like it'd be college. And you go up against someone and you're like, this guy's is like shit. Like I fucking love this dude. Like I'm everything. And you see him, you know, it can even be little things. Like it doesn't even have to be a big turnover. It can just be like, I noticed them, you know, positioned poorly on like one defensive play. And I'm like, okay, good to know. Like these people are just people also.
Not perfect.
Exactly. Right. And it gives me that like, why are you, you know, because like I said, I'll be pretty hard on myself when I make mistakes, but then you see other people that you are like, I think you're really good. I know a lot of other people who think you're really good. And I also see you doing things that I'm like, yeah, what the fuck are you doing? And that always would make me feel like that would give me that belief even more that like, oh, I can be anything. Like I can be all of that and more.
Yeah. That's so helpful. And I think one thing I found to be helpful is like when you really, like Marshall was saying, like believing that you can make a difference, like when you put forth effort, that you can improve, and like really valuing effort. I was trying to figure out why this bothered me so much when we were at tryouts for Masters, and I won't name any names, but there was one guy who was like trying to get the disc constantly, and like there were times he was kind of open, but he also had a good defender on him who's, you know, baits things. So I'm like, you're not that open, dude. And like every single time he made a cut or a move and didn't get the disc, he would pout and like shake his head. And I was like, why is this bothering me so much? It was because it wasn't just that, it wasn't his reaction. It was the fact that he was not putting forth effort for like the next 10 seconds. It's like you are not showing up for your team because things aren't going exactly how you want. And the way you want is to always have the disc in your hands, even though you're not at that level. So like to me, that was just a thing like, A, I can take a deep breath and accept it. Not a huge deal. But B, part of it is like personally, I have put so much emphasis on the importance of unconditional effort and showing up for your teammates. So seeing that over and over and over just like really got under my skin because it's like you have the ability to be frustrated for a moment and like maybe your facial expression changes, but like then continue to work rather than just giving up for 10 seconds while the rest of your team plays.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, just a thought there.
Mm.
That self-awareness piece is always really big. Um, yeah, and it's funny. It's funny how pretty much everyone is not. Pretty much everyone who thinks that they're good at self-awareness, you're probably not as good. You're probably a lot worse. I think I saw a study that showed that 92% of math teachers thought that they like did their quality of teaching was above average. Like that's mathematically impossible. If you got everyone on your team to close their eyes and ask, "Are you an above average teammate?" You're probably going to get more than half of the people who raise their hands to like say that. It's like, um, so often we think like we're biased towards like believing, we're just like a little above average on like everything, um, when often we're not, and that's a difficult conversation to have. So that external piece of self-awareness is often as important as internal of like, not just are we aware of what's going on in our mind, but like what, like how do we compare relative to others? It's really hard to get an accurate picture of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a great point. That self-assessment, self-awareness. It's interesting because the people I've heard outwardly say, like, I'm a very self-aware person. Um, Typically they have major blind spots. Um, or what they mean is like they're very self-conscious, which is a different thing.
Yes, having good self-awareness is not equal to being just like really self-critical of yourself. That's part of it, but it's not, it's half of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If you're just sitting around thinking about like everything all the time, that's not ideal. Yeah. I gotta hop out here, but I don't know if you guys wanted to keep going. I think I could leave the studio and you all could stay. Um,
I'm probably gonna get lunch in a bit, but I can hang out for a couple minutes.
Yeah, I was just thinking we should have like a repeating Marshall segment where it's like the Marshall reframe of the week. And
oh,
you take something like we find some sort
Just
of
get like a caller, just get like a
yeah,
caller question.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like someone just saying something about it, and like it can be like for Lynn, like that kind of
yeah.
example. But
Yeah,
it's like it's the Marshall reframe of the
yeah.
week, and you have to
Let me,
and Marshall comes in and reframes
yeah. let me plug my. I will plug my thing real quick in the chat though.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah, if
Plug
you
your
any of this stuff
thing in
is
the chat.
interested you, I put in a lot of.
No,
There's
you're
a lot of
hired,
time.
Marshall. I'm hiring you.
Reach out. A lot of links on my website. We do a 15-minute free like discovery call consultation, figure out what's necessary for you, and then we book you with me or another contractor to like get started. And then also I have, let me find a link to this. Doing a free workshop on May 22nd, I believe this Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, on how to actually integrate mental performance training into your routine. So if either of those things are interesting to both of you all, anyone in the chat,
Yeah.
those are both resources. Also,
I'm
this link is
very
too long for me to
interested.
send.
I'm very interested, Marshall. I want to start incorporating some more of this stuff into my life. So let's talk for sure.
Definitely.
Oh,
All
yeah.
right. Cool.
Sweet. Hell yeah.
Um,
Good stream.
hey,
Thanks,
great,
chat.
great stuff.
Dude, we gotta
Yeah,
figure out.
Marshall.
I need this Omni chat on Riverside. We're gonna figure
I
that
just
out.
have the stream open in a separate tab.
Yeah.
So I can like see the chat and then like I had this tab
Yeah,
open too.
that's
But
what I had YouTube open. So Lynn had I screenshotted a few things that we can address. If Marshall, you are welcome to come on whenever you want. We do this every Monday. Um, but I screenshotted that so we can address that, Lynn, because that's some frustrating stuff. Moral of the story is making good cuts, getting good feedback about it, not getting the disc thrown to her in mixed by men. So not fun, not a fun place to be. But Lynn, keep doing what you're doing. You can't control what other people do. And Leon's here. Good. He said, great stuff, guys. Thanks so much. Sweet. Well, I got to get to, we have our 6-month checkup for the baby.
oh, congrats.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hell
Final
yeah.
round of shots for her first round of vaccines. So extra
Nice.
immunization.
Nice. Hell yeah.
All right. All right. Have a great day. Have a great week, guys.
Peace, everyone. Good to see you again,
See ya.
Marshall. Bye, Brian.